I didn't plan to end up running the whole project alone. It just happened, the way slow erosion happens. One task after another, one weekend after another, one, hey, can you jump on a quick call? That never stayed quick. By the time I realized I hadn't taken a full day off in 6 months, my manager, Evan, had already built a career standing on my shoulders. He wasn't cruel. That would have been easier. He was charming, loud in meetings, funny with clients, the kind of guy who used words like synergy and momentum without irony. But when it came to actual work, he vanished. Every report, every slide deck, every commit, mine. His contribution was usually forwarding my emails with a new subject line. Our update. I should have drawn boundaries earlier. Instead, I kept convincing myself that good work would speak for itself. Spoiler, it doesn't. One Monday morning, after a 12-hour Sunday fixing deployment scripts, I walked into our daily stand-up. Evan joined 10 minutes late, grinning like he'd just closed a deal. Team, he said, clapping his hands. We're being recognized for our innovation on the Nexus rollout. He said it like he'd stayed up patching the release pipeline with me. I stared at my coffee, trying not to flinch. After the meeting, I told him, Evan, you didn't mention that the rollback happened because your approval delayed the Jenkins key. He blinked, all fake surprise. Man, don't get caught in the details. Big picture. That's where growth happens. That was the first time he said growth. I didn't know it was his favorite word. 2 weeks later, he asked me to loop him in on every client thread. Then he stopped replying to them altogether. The clients thought I was ghosting them. I had to fix that too. By March, the tension was palpable. Our flagship client was expecting a live integration demo in 6 weeks, and the codebase was a maze of partial merges, quick fixes, and feature branches no one had tested. Evan still acted like the visionary, talking about revolutionizing B2B automation while I silently cleaned up his promises. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, after a review call that I single-handedly saved from imploding, he dropped the line that shifted everything. I think, he said, leaning back in his chair, I need freedom to grow without you. I laughed. I thought it was a joke. You mean without my code? No, he said, smiling that rehearsed smile. Without your control. You're too rigid, man. Too focused on compliance. I need to explore new directions. Creative autonomy. I looked at him for a long second, then I said it, calm and clear. Go ahead, but not on my project. His smile faltered, just a flicker. You don't own this project. Actually, I said, pulling up this out on my monitor, legally speaking, I'm the project lead of record. Every commit, every deliverable, every client-facing document runs through my sign-off. You can have freedom, but not on this. He blinked twice. You can't block me. I'm not blocking you. I'm setting boundaries. That was the moment something inside me clicked. I realized that saying no wasn't rebellion. It was maintenance, of sanity, of respect. That night, I stayed late, not coding, documenting. I started with access logs. Who could push to prod? Who could edit the demo deck? Who had visibility into the client's sandbox? I trimmed permissions until they matched the contract scope exactly. Then I created a new branch policy. All merges required 2 independent reviews and ticket IDs tied to the client's backlog. No exceptions. I archived every Slack decision in Confluence. If someone sneezed near a deliverable, I had a record. It wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. Because Evan wasn't going to grow quietly. I could feel it in the way he stopped saying we and started saying I. By Friday, he had begun scheduling innovation syncs without me. When I joined one uninvited, I saw him presenting my workflow diagram, cropped, rebranded, and renamed Project Orion. He noticed me in the participants list and froze mid-sentence. Hey, he said, forcing a laugh, was just walking them through some ideas. Your ideas? I asked. The silence that followed was heavy. The kind of silence that smells like ozone before a storm. I didn't confront him further. I just screenshotted the slide, the attendees, the timestamp, Then I left the meeting quietly. That weekend I made sure every file, every slide, every diagram had digital watermarks and unique trace IDs. If he wanted freedom, I'd let him have it, but every step would leave footprints. When I came in Monday morning, he was unusually cheerful. Too cheerful. He'd clearly mistaken my silence for surrender. He had no idea that his freedom had just been neatly contained inside a box with a lock, and I was holding the key. By Tuesday, my calendar looked like a chessboard someone kicked mid-game. Demos moved. Check-ins split. A mysterious Orion vision block appeared on Wednesdays with a guest list I wasn't on. People started pinging me. "Do you want me at Evan's thing?" I answered with a screenshot of the SOW line that made me project lead for all client-facing work. "Stick to the plan. If it's client-bound, it routes through me." I kept it dry, not petty. Paper over noise. He upped the noise. In design review, Evans slid into Figma with an energy like he owned it. "We're thinking bolder hero imagery," he said, nudging a layout the way you nudge a toddler's drawing, to stop them from eating the crayon. He tagged our designer, Maya. "Let's move all brand decisions under my stream so we can move faster." Maya looked at me. I didn't take the bait. "Brand is explicitly owned by the client's comms per section 2.3, I said, linking the section in chat. "All changes roll up through their director. Please keep frames tied to ticket IDs." The channel went quiet. In that way, teams go quiet when they see a line drawn. That afternoon, approval requests started to hit our repo from accounts that had never touched a merge. New contributors, read-only by default, were suddenly asking for write. I declined with a canned response and spun up a read-only mirror of the demo repo. It pulled every hour, stripped secrets, replaced real keys with generated duds, and embedded an invisible fingerprint in image assets. Not to catch thieves exactly, to produce proof. At 8:42 p.m., Evan DM'd me. "Quick question. Are we locked on the demo deck format, or can I share a teaser?" I sat at my kitchen table, eating cold pasta, staring at that message like it had teeth. "Locked," I typed. "Nothing leaves before compliance review." He replied with a thumbs up. Then he booked a 9 p.m. Orion Vision, anyway. I didn't join. I sent myself to work. I carved guardrails into everything. CI/CD approvals required 2 humans, not name me. Release candidates tagged with dates, checksums, and the initials of reviewers in commit messages. I set a policy that any doc presented to the client had to have the DocuSign envelope ID embedded in the footer, smaller than dust. I installed a tiny pixel from a company-approved analytics tool on the deck, legal declared, dull, and whitelisted our domains. That meant if someone opened it from an unknown system, I'd get a ping. Not an alarm, a whisper. The whisper came 2 days later at 11:13 a.m. Unknown device, unknown IP range, deck title, Nexus, Demo, vSend, Final, PPTX. The file name made me laugh because I only ever published v4, and I never used Final. I didn't confront him. I logged the event, time, and the slide number the viewer lingered on. Slide 12. Architecture overview with redacted code screenshots. In our official deck, those were replaced with diagrams. In the image metadata of the screenshot, the strip I created had my initials in a hash. The watermark was there, invisible to anyone but me. He kept pushing scope. "Client just told me they're open to rethinking billing flows," Evan announced in stand-up, breezy like weather talk. I shook my head. "They told you, or you told them?" He smiled. "Collaborative brainstorm." I opened the shared notes. No invite, no record. "Everything's ticketed," I said. "We're not moving billing in Q2. We promise stability." "Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones," he said with that manager TED Talk cadence, and someone on the team actually rolled their eyes on camera. I stopped disagreeing in public. I started routing. I added the client sponsor, Paula, to a weekly risk register email, color-coded, boring to the point of medicinal. Items had owners, thresholds, exit criteria. I included a line. Unofficial proposals circulating outside SOW scope pose schedule risk. Recommend centralizing ideation in recorded channels. Paula replied, agree. Please loop me if scope shifts are suggested. Receipt acknowledged. He tried to rearrange people like furniture. He called our data engineer, Tariq, to borrow him for an afternoon. Tariq pinged me. Do you need me? I replied with a screenshot of our Gantt, where Tariq's name sat under a bright bar. Fraud model, train. I need you to not miss your window. Tariq stayed. Evan posted a GIF in the team chat 2 minutes later. Something about blockers. I let it scroll by. On the Friday before dry run week, he sent out a calendar invite titled Innovation Jam Invite Only. No agenda, no doc. I declined. 5 minutes later, a different invite hit my inbox from a strategic partner with a domain I didn't recognize, CCing Evan, titled Orion X Elevate Platform Synergies. This time I didn't decline. I forwarded it to legal with one sentence. Is this sanctioned? They responded in 8 minutes. No, do not attend. Please send any materials that may have been shared. InfoSec chimed in right after. We're monitoring. Keep assets in approved channels. I slid the thread into my private folder and went back to work like nothing happened. The near miss arrived under a friendly subject line. Thoughts? Evan had sent the exec team a deck called Future State, Orion Paths. Slide 8 had a cropped screenshot of a code window. Black background, green text. Dramatic like a movie. It was our adapter interface. Lines 17 to 33. Redacted, but not enough. To anyone else, it looked like abstract art. To me, it was a bullet with my fingerprints, because I'd written those comments at 2:11 a.m., and I always start with 3 slashes, not 2. I replied to the thread with no heat, just wait. Please remove all code imagery from external-facing materials. So prohibits sharing implementation specifics. Here's the clause. Link. Also, all client-facing decks should route through me for consistency and compliance. No attack, just Rails. He shot back. Public. We need to be bold if we want to lead. Paula joined. We need to be compliant if we want to ship. He pivoted to charm. Totally, just blue skying. He sent me a DM at 10:03 p.m. You made me look bad. I typed and deleted 3 responses. I settled on, I made us look aligned with our contract. Control freak, he wrote. Boundaries, I wrote, and muted the conversation. The team felt the shift. People who'd been cautious started sending me receipts, calendar screenshots, forwarded emails, a Slack snippet where Evan told a junior PM to just tweak the dates in Jira so it looks green. I didn't tell them to send anything. I just said, thanks, log it here, and created a private channel named Risk Log with legal and InfoSec quietly added. It wasn't a trap for him. It was a net for the team. Dry run week arrived like a train on rails. I had hammered myself. The build was clean. The test data was realistic. Scrubbed. Safe. We ran through the demo twice a day, swapping presenters to make sure no single point of failure existed. I scheduled alternates for every segment. If my laptop died, Maya could carry UI. If Tariq froze, our QA, Lila, would narrate metrics. It was boringly resilient. It was beautiful. He tried one last angle. I'm going to open the demo with a visionary statement, he told me, eyes bright. Set the tone. Tone is delivery, I said. Statement is risk. The first 120 seconds must be facts. What we built, what it solves, what we're showing. Trust me, he said, and I smiled without humor because if trust had a ledger, his was overdrawn. At 7:02 a.m. on demo day, the pixel pinged again. Unknown device, slide 3. Someone was reviewing the deck, but the file name this time was Orion Demo, V1.tx. Not ours. Another deck, same bones, cheap veneer. I added the timestamp to the log and brewed coffee. I put on a shirt with a collar because theater matters, even for engineers. 10 minutes before we went live, I got an access request from a Gmail account for the sandbox. It came with a note. Evan said to grant for pre-check. I denied and copied Paula. Unapproved access request to client environment. Declined. Paula replied with a thank you that had the tone of a locked door. We gathered in the call, cameras on, names aligned in little rectangles. Evan cleared his throat, like a man stepping onto a stage he believed he built. He asked for screen share. I kept the host controls. The client VP joined, then Paula, then legal from our side, sitting silent in the participant list like a shadow. Evan smiled at his own reflection. I opened the deck we approved. Slide 1 breathed onto the screen, professional, quiet, mapped to tickets and paragraphs and promises. I spoke the first 15 seconds slowly. The team followed, crisp, on time, without flair, like a string quartet that rehearsed for the one night that mattered. When it was Evan's turn to set the tone, I advanced to the next slide and watched his face when the words he wanted weren't there. He improvised. He tried to paint the sky. Paula cut in gently. Let's stick to the agenda. We did. We hit every beat. We closed. The VP nodded. Solid work. Schedule holds. Next steps as planned. It was everything I wanted. Boring approval. The kind people forget because nothing exploded. Then, as everyone was about to leave, Paula said, before we drop, a small housekeeping item. She pasted a screenshot into the chat, a cropped image of an Orion deck with the wrong footer, the wrong font, and, if you knew where to look, my invisible mark just faintly embedded in the corner. She asked one question that sounded simple and felt heavy. Who shared this outside approved channels? The silence that followed Paula's question felt heavier than sound. Even through the pixels of a conference call, you could feel it, that collective shift where people instinctively stop moving, stop breathing, waiting for someone else to speak first. Evan's face didn't flinch right away. He tilted his head, that manager half-smile he used when caught off guard but still thought charm might save him. I'm not sure what that is, he said lightly. Looks like an early mock-up we discarded. Paula didn't blink. It was opened last night from an unregistered device in another organization. Contained internal code fragments. We want to make sure our IP hasn't been shared without clearance. The chat blew up with muted icons. Everyone knew what that meant. I stayed still, watching, because the trap wasn't mine. It was his, and he'd built it himself. He laughed, a sharp exhale through his nose. Well, I didn't share anything. Maybe one of the designers pulled an older version. We've been exploring ideas across teams. Across which teams? Paul asked. Evan looked at me, as if expecting me to bail him out like always. For the first time, I didn't. I'm not aware of any cross-team collaborations, I said. Per SOW, we're limited to Nexus internal and client-approved contractors. There are no authorized external partners. His jaw clenched. You're overreacting. It's a misunderstanding. Paula's voice stayed even. Then we'll clarify it through InfoSec. Please keep all decks offline until verification. The call ended politely, but the air afterward felt poisoned. Within minutes, I saw the internal Slack light up. The quiet corporate kind of panic. HR tagging legal, legal tagging security. Then the digital equivalent of closing the doors. The project channel was set to read only. For a moment, I just sat there staring at my monitor. The cursor blinked on an empty line, steady, unbothered. I wasn't proud, not yet. Mostly I felt tired, because what people don't tell you about doing the right thing is how much paperwork it generates. The audit began before lunch. An automated access review swept through every folder, repo, and cloud share tied to the project. Within the hour, 2 unapproved links popped up, both created by Evan. One pointed to a private Google Drive labeled Vision Materials, the other to a deck he'd sent to a strategic partner domain 2 nights earlier. The metadata told the whole story. Timestamps, edit history, login IP. He'd opened our production deck, duplicated it, swapped the logo, changed the project name from Nexus to Orion, and shared it under his own credentials. That was the moment my exhaustion turned to clarity. I forwarded the audit summary to legal. No commentary. No gloating, just facts. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from HR. Please don't engage directly with Evan. We're handling it. But he couldn't resist. By 3 p.m., my Slack lit up with a private DM. Evan, you think you're clever, huh? Me. I think I'm thorough. Evan, you set me up. Me. You set yourself up. I just documented it. Then he tried calling. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the risk log, that quiet graveyard of receipts, and uploaded one final note. Unauthorized external share confirmed. Client informed. Awaiting action. When I closed the file, I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. By evening, whispers spread. Our engineering lead pinged me privately. HR pulled Evan from the org chat. You okay? I typed back, tired, but yeah. Then came the official email. Temporary reassignment of managerial duties. Pending investigation. Corporate phrasing for we're cutting him out quietly before the client hears it from someone else. But the client already knew. Paula called me directly that night. Her tone was measured, but there was warmth underneath. You handled this with precision, she said. We were aware of the irregularities, but your documentation made it airtight. Legal appreciates clarity. I thanked her. She paused. Off the record, she added, he pitched our concept to one of our competitors last week. Same deck. He even used your screenshots. I let out a slow breath. You have proof? She laughed quietly. We don't need more. We already sent them a cease and desist. They forwarded us the email. He used his company address. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of guilt, there was none, but because the adrenaline finally wore off. Months of quiet tension collapsing into silence. I kept replaying this line in my head. I need freedom to grow without you. Freedom. What he really meant was freedom from accountability. And I'd given it to him, just not in the way he expected. The next morning, HR scheduled a mandatory sync. 15 minutes, 2 faces in little rectangles, both polite to the point of surgical. We concluded our review, one said. There were multiple policy breaches, including unauthorized sharing of proprietary material. The client requested that Evan be removed from all active engagements. He'll be leaving the organization immediately. I nodded. They continued. You'll take interim ownership of the Nexus program until we formalize leadership. That was it. No fireworks, no applause. Just quiet justice. After the call, I walked down to the cafeteria for the first time in months. The coffee still tasted terrible. The vending machine still ate coins. The world kept spinning. At my desk, a final Slack popped up from Evan's account before it was deactivated. You win. I stared at it for a moment before replying. No, I just stopped losing. He never saw it. The message bounced back. His profile was already gone. That afternoon, Paula sent one more note. Appreciate your professionalism through this. The demo exceeded expectations. Let's move forward. Simple words, but heavy enough to close the chapter. I looked at the empty seat across from me, the one Evan used to occupy during our early stand-ups, all confidence and slogans. Now it was just a chair, harmless and quiet. The office was still. The project was mine again, not because I'd fought for it, but because I'd protected it, long enough for the noise to burn itself out. And somewhere between the silence of the keyboard and the hum of the server fans, I finally felt what I hadn't. In months. Peace. The Monday after his removal felt unnaturally calm. No 7 a.m. Quick pings. No just ideating calendar spam. No performative pep talks. The silence had texture. It wasn't empty. It was earned. I logged in early, the code built clean. No red flags in Jenkins, no random branches with half-tested promises. I opened the team channel and just wrote, "Morning, folks. Let's finish strong." Reactions flooded in. Quiet relief, a few laughing emojis, one message that said simply, "Feels different already." By noon, the client had already signed off on Phase 2. The contract renewal came with an additional clause. Project leadership will remain unchanged for the next 2 quarters. It didn't name me, but it didn't need to. In my inbox sat a calendar invite from legal, titled Final Review, Orion Audit. They didn't need me there technically, but they wanted a statement of record. When the call started, the panel was small. HR, InfoSec, Paula, and me. The summary was brief and brutal. Evan had shared 4 confidential assets to an outside vendor under NDA with a competitor. The company had received a formal complaint, reviewed the metadata, and terminated him with cause. No severance, no references. His freedom had turned into a crater. The HR rep asked if I wanted to add anything. "No," I said. "The documentation speaks for itself." She nodded. "For what it's worth, you handled this cleanly. No gossip, no escalation outside channels. That's rare." After the call, Paula pinged me privately. "We're consolidating the next contract. You've built something worth keeping. Let's make sure you're the one steering it." For the first time in months, I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Not the polite, professional smile, the one that starts in your chest when you finally stop clenching. That afternoon, I walked the floor. The team was laughing again. Maya was sketching on a whiteboard. Tariq had music playing quietly through his earbuds while debugging. Even the junior devs looked relaxed. The air felt lighter, like oxygen after a long dive. I didn't say much, just nodded, checked code, reviewed pull requests, the normal work, the good kind. Later that week, HR circulated a corporate memo, a reminder to respect data boundaries and collaborative ownership. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. By Friday, a message popped up on LinkedIn. Evan, different company name beside his photo, new title, Independent Innovation Consultant. He'd posted a long paragraph about resilience and personal growth, about learning from every chapter. At the end, he'd written, "Sometimes you need freedom to grow." I stared at it for a while, then clicked away without reacting. Because real freedom wasn't in quitting or running or pretending. It was in building something the right way and watching it stand when everything else collapsed. The following Monday, our project shipped to production. No drama, no noise, just a smooth release, a round of tired applause, and a single email from the client. "This is the most stable launch we've ever had. Thank you." I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet. The same quiet that used to feel like exhaustion now felt like control. He got what he wanted, freedom, and I got what I needed, space. Space to grow without him.